Welcome to episode 5 of 100 Movies Everyone Should Watch. Today we're going to be covering the 1970s, which was a great decade for cinema. Our first movie is Apocalypse Now, which is the greatest war movie ever made. Part of what makes this movie so excellent is that it's a great book-to-film adaptation. It keeps the same themes, yet improves on certain aspects. The movie follows a captain who is tasked to hunt down a rogue colonel in the Vietnam War. The movie boils down to the battle of good and evil and is held up by great performances, awesome camera work, and deeper themes. This is a war epic and one that holds up remarkably well today. It is the 31st of my list of 100 movies everyone should watch.
Someday this war's gonna end.
Alien is an awesome example of what happens when you combine two very different genres and get something great. The movie is set in a claustrophobic spaceship and follows a group of astronauts who are stranded and pinned down from a rogue alien they picked up. This movie is one of the best science fiction and horror movies out there, and is a movie that holds up remarkably well today for a low-budget science fiction movie. What's great about this movie is that it really set the standard for the horror genre. Ridley Scott did an excellent job at bringing the audience into the world and pinning them down next to the characters, which is really a scary thought. This is an excellent movie and one that you need to check out. Our next movie is Star Wars. And next up is Taxi Driver, which is an excellent... I'm just kidding. Let's talk about the most influential movie of all time. Star Wars sets the bar, which is a bar that to this day has never been matched in terms of blockbusters, science fiction movies, special effects and movies, storytelling, critical appeal, and so much more. Star Wars is the movie. It's a movie that's loved by children, adults, audiences, critics. You name someone, it would be hard for them to dislike this movie. Companies were formed, other series were spawned, and still, nothing has been able to touch Star Wars. If you have not seen Star Wars A New Hope, make sure you watch it, and then go ahead and see Empire Strikes Back and then Return of the Jedi.
Your power's a weak old man.
You can't win, Darth.
It's hard to follow up Star Wars, but Taxi Driver does a pretty great job. The movie centers around Travis Bickle, a Vietnam War veteran who returns home and tries to fit in before slipping into insanity. This is a movie about insanity and loneliness and how one fuels the other. This is possibly the greatest character study ever captured on film, and it slowly shows Travis's descent into madness. However, what makes this movie so great and sets it apart from all the other good movies is how this one comes together. Sure, this has great performances, it's well written, it's well edited, but there are dozens of movies just like that. What makes this so great is the psychological effect that it has on the viewer and how they are able to place themselves in the movie. If you have not seen this movie, then make sure you watch it.
You talking to me? You talking to me? You talking to me?
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is yet another great book-to-film adaptation. Same story, same themes, but a different style. Jack Nicholson plays Randall P. McMurphy, a biblical-esque character sentenced to time spent in a mental hospital. From there, he sees the injustices, and he does what he can to stick up for the people around him and those who he cares about. Everything about this movie is top-notch. The writing, directing, cinematography, but the cherry on top of this movie is the acting. You've got great Hollywood actors in smaller roles, and they all give incredible performances. However, all around, no one gives a bad performance. This is a movie that just feels real. It has shifted public views and has definitely improved the world because of its popularity, and is the 35th out of 100 movies everyone should watch.
Mr. Cheswick, would you please follow me?
Jaws shows that breaking the conventional rules of a genre can have some pretty great results. In what was really the first summer blockbuster, a small ocean town is terrorized by a man-eating shark, and it's up to a group of unlikely heroes to stop it. Most people know the stories and most people love the movie, but what's so great about this movie is how it just works. With little conflict and lots of payoff, this is the movie that works on a couple of levels. It's a horror movie, an adventure, and a drama all rolled into one, and all of these elements come out at one time or another, but never invade each other. This movie has really shaped Hollywood, set the standards for countless horror movies, and a major milestone for practical effects. Chinatown is my favorite, and in my opinion, the best film in the sub-neo-noir genre. A private detective is hired to expose a cheating husband, and quickly gets caught up in a world of crime, murder, and bribery. Part of why I love this movie so much is the way that it was shot. Although the movie is in color, it feels like it's in black and white, similar camera angles and techniques that really aren't present in color. However, besides that, the movie is excellent. It has awesome editing, some great performances, and overall is a great detective movie. It has inspired quite a few other detective movies and is undeniably a movie that has shaped the modern thriller, crime, and mystery genre.
Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.
Although I wouldn't call it the best, I would call The Exorcist the scariest horror movie of all time. Following the events of a teenage girl being possessed by the devil, the mother seeks help from priests, doctors, and anyone who she can find. At its core, this is a movie that is about the difference between science and faith, but exists on so many levels. You could take it on a surface level as a really great horror movie, or you could look deeper and see the battle between religion and new forms of modern science. Moreover, this movie exists as a social statement. It has inspired so many other horror movies today. Now, granted, most of them aren't that great, but it is still a movie that has left its mark on the film industry. Where do we begin with The Godfather? Do we discuss the editing, the direction, the little things like the soundtrack and cinematography? Do we start with the performances? Well, let me just start by saying The Godfather is great. It tells the story of Michael Corleone, a man who is given the choice of pursuing an honest career path or inheriting his father's crime empire. And it's about a good man turned bad. This movie is great, and in a crime story that is rivaled by very few. It's a movie about father and son, and in the end, has excellent results. This is a movie that revitalized the film industry and has created a movie that will forever be a landmark for cinema.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
So after that, let's talk about why I prefer The Godfather Part 2 more than the first. Let me just say the first is still excellent, however, I think that the second is a little bit better. This time the movie tells two stories. One which continues Michael's story now that he is the Don of the Empire, and the other showing his father's rise to power. Everything that I said about the first movie applies here as well. Excellent performances and overall excellent on a technical level and just as entertaining. But what separates this movie from the original is the scale of it. The movie exists not only on a few countries, but also on a few continents. Thousands of extras were used in the filming of this movie and is a really great crime epic. Another great aspect of this movie is how it continues Michael's story. It is an excellent continuation to the original, it ties up loose ends, and acts as a great sequel to the great movie. It's intense, it's well acted, and it is spectacular. The Godfather Part 2 is the 40th of 100 movies everyone should watch.
You heard what happened in my home?
Mike, I almost died myself. It was all so relieved.
In my home!
A Clockwork Orange forever changed the acceptable level of violence in film. Stanley Kubrick's British drama tells the story of Alex DeLarge, a youth who is forced into experimental therapy in order for the government to try and stop the crime problem. This is a movie that's hard to stomach at times, but if you can handle it, then this is an example of excellent filmmaking. The vision and thought that went into this movie is just incredible. On top of that, this is a movie that is a fine example of what an artist will do in order to make his or her work. After being turned down from dozens of production companies, Kubrick finally had to turn to another country in order to make his vision of his film come true. Say what you will about the violence in this movie, it is a piece of art made by one of the greatest artists of the 20th century.
If I was to be a free young Malchik again in a fortnight's time, I would put up with much in the meantime, oh my brothers.
So this marks the end of the 1970s. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, comment, and give me some feedback. I would really like to hear it. And make sure you join me next week when we cover the 1960s.